We are at the end of day 9 of tranche 2, phase 2 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry. We have been listening to the live evidence of Chris Baillee, who has been joining us via video link. I'm joined by Eveline Lubbers from the Undercover Research Group. Chris Baillee was an animal rights activist. He was part of London Greenpeace. He was spied on by a number of officers, including Mike Chitty, John Dines, but most significantly Bob Lambert. What did you make of his evidence, Eveline?
Yeah. Well, he was very clear in his answers. He was very clear in what he remembered and what he didn't, taking into account that he's very ill, but he found it very important to give evidence and to make a statement for the inquiry, for which Mitting explicitly thanked him. And one of the important things that the entire questioning was built up to was an action throwing a stone through a butcher's window as an animal rights activist. He had a very detailed memory of how Bob Lambert, or Bob Robinson as they knew him, invited them to his house, cooked a meal for them. They had a beer, they had another beer, they smoked a spliff. And then Bob suggested they would go in his van and go to this butcher shop. And Chris was very sure that he said, well, let's just go and check it out, what it looks like, and, like how easy you can get away, stuff like that. So they went there. Bob drove, had a line of view with the butcher shop. They went to check it out, and then the other person, the third person who was with them, which we were calling Mr. X today, took a stone and threw it through the window, which was, as he remembered it, not that what they had agreed and not what he wanted to do at that moment, because he wasn't prepared or the situation wasn't right. But what happened is that Mr. X ran away, got to the van in time, and Chris got arrested and went to trial for it. Was convicted for something he didn't do, and he's been consistently telling what has happened over the years. So what was important, but apart from this entire building up, like which groups were you a part of, what kind of violence did you use, or would you agree to, was Mitting specifically said that it was his goal to get to the bottom of this and to ask Bob Lambert about it too. And then if he was convinced that Chris had not done it, he wanted to have the conviction crushed and thrown out. And he kind of promised to rush that and ask permission to, he's got terminal cancer, so to use that to speed things up. I was going to say another important thing. Yeah.
I mean, this is something which the priorities of the inquiry, it's very clear that John Mitting's way of thinking, it's the miscarriages of justice are one of the most important parts of it. He's very clear that it's a priority for him to deal with these things. So, it was kind of strange given the amount of time that we were talking about, that the majority of things focused on that one particular evening where that butcher shop in Roehampton that was selling the deer meat from the Richmond Park deer cull, which was an event that used to happen every summer. So this is why there was a target against it. It wasn't just some random butcher shop. Why this has been talked about so much. But I think it's really illustrative, not just of the way in which Bob Lambert in particular, but undercover cops in general were picking people up, but also about how the effect that this had on Chris Baillee afterwards. He kind of withdrew from politics generally. He remained a committed vegan, he remained an anarchist, and he still is both those things to this day. But he stopped being involved in street actions. We saw a number of reports that said that he was considered prolific even amongst the fanatical when it came to taking part in things like leafleting, taking part in whatever. But because of this experience, because of the judge telling him that if he was ever found in court again, he'd be going to prison, because the police contacted his employer, and his employer said, look, if this happens again, you're losing your job. and the unnecessary strain that's put on his life, that he removed himself from politics. And I think this is the kind of always the aim, really, of undercover officers. It's not just to get that, oh, we've got one of them nicked on their card, but also to just intimidate people out of political activity. And as much as this one miscarriage of justice is horrendous, I mean, it is just illustrative of a wider tactic that was generally being used, which happens to lots of people, you know?
Yeah, that's a very important aspect of it, that it had such an influence on him and that it really took him out of politics, specifically because he hadn't done it. And he was also, he's very sort of honest, and he was like a very nice person, very endearing, the way he came over. And he said, like, it was very clear that he had been thrown stones through windows before, but not at this specific occasion, and that was very important to him. And another important thing that was put to him was, like, in the statement Lambert gave, he denied everything. He denied that Chris and the other person he invited them to dinner, that they had been drinking. He claimed he never smoked cannabis at all. Or maybe only pretending to if he couldn't,
He used the Bill Clinton defense. I smoked it, but I didn't inhale.
That was very, very funny on this day, yeah. But it's like, it is an impression that we also got from Martin Lowe's witness, the hearing of Martin Lowe as a witness, is that Bob Lammers was just stitching people up. He was, he wrote up in things in his reports that weren't true, that, like this, Chris today was very clear about it. He's just a liar. He's a bloody liar. He's writing things up and then putting, like in earlier reports that were cited today, like putting him in a specific corner, which then may have influenced the court case or the judge. Like, this is a radical animal rights activist, and he needs to be punished. And like he's like completely denying everything that Chris has a very specific memory of, and we know that this is going to happen more. Like there's several activists, non-state core participants, who have told us already that like Bob Lambert wrote horrific things about them, implied they were involved in actions that they weren't, and that like you can just see what kind of influence that has on people, on their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, like you say, we've seen time and again where situations where Bob Lambert has clearly just grabbed somebody, like used the name of somebody else to put in place of what he was doing. Yeah. We heard a lot about Anarchists for Animals today. He talks about the original meeting of people. He doesn't include himself in that original meeting as if it's something he's heard about. It's clear that he was there, and there's a suggestion that maybe he set the group up. But like certainly other people have said no, that I wasn't involved. I mean, like today, Chris said, well, I might have gone along to a few things, but I didn't see it as something that he was like central to. Certainly wasn't a founder of it, as the report said. Yeah, I mean that is the headline of the day, right? The lying, the intense lying, and the consistent lying, and the recent lying. Another thing we saw that I thought was very interesting was how Chris was being spied on again in the mid-90s. Because there was a fear, because he worked for British Telecom, that he would somehow hack the phone of John Dines in New Zealand, which kind of was a ridiculous suggestion. I mean, he did point out that, like, not only was he wouldn't do such a thing because it would risk his job, but also he would have no ability to do such a thing. He didn't work in that kind of area, and it wouldn't have been possible anyway. This was in New Zealand. Yeah, it appears that like a number of undercover police officers, a number of reports are written up about this. It's really like you get the impression the SDS, and it's the SDS who's doing this, it was going to great lengths to protect John Dines at this point, and we're kind of chasing all sorts of wild goose chases, making it look. If you looked at the reports, you think this was a credible thing, that somehow Chris Baillee was actively involved alongside others trying to track down John Dines. Nothing could be further from the truth. He was never asked. He wouldn't have done it anyway. He never had the ability to do it. To looking at the report, I mean, God knows how many man hours they claimed for that particular bit of spying that they were doing. But yeah, I mean, it goes back to that point that if you've been spied on by the Special Demonstration Squad, or probably the same for the National Public Order Intelligence Unit, they will go back to the well. You're marked for life now, and you're always going to get you're always going to get spied on. Anything else you want to add about today's hearing?
No, I find it, like I would. I only hope that more people will come forward who can, maybe not to the inquiry, but to us, to the Undercover Research Group, to you, who have details to add, things they remember about the involvement of Bob Lambert, Bob Robinson, as he was called back in the day, and how he incited things. He clearly took initiatives. He clearly was a leading figure in that group, and sort of took younger people under his wings and all kind of things that they may or may not have been brought to trial for. And it's very important to know, not just for the miscarriage of judgment, but also, for his role as an agent provocateur and all the detail. We know a lot about what Bob Lambert has done, but hardly everything. So, please come forward if you know more.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely key. And we really rely on people who've been targeted by undercover police, as many of us were, to build their understanding of what they were up to. So if you were affected in any way or you know someone who was, please get in touch. That's it for today. I'll be doing a Twitter Spaces later on, and we finished at like a sensible time. So maybe I'll even do a Twitter Spaces at a sensible time, though I am about to go to the pub. So we'll see how that goes. Tomorrow we're back again, 10 a.m. Gabrielle Bosley will be giving evidence. I'll be covering it as usual. I've also started posting things on Twitter, the Instagram Live. Just because during the short breaks I haven't got time to set up the laptop and get the microphone out like I do in the lunch break and at the end of the day. So I'll try and share those on all the other platforms that I'm sharing things about. But please let me know any feedback about those, if that's useful or not. Now that there's no live stream, I'm trying to do more things to sort of get people's understanding of what's been happening. But thanks for joining us, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Cheers.
Cheers.